I do, and I want to learn more about it. So we'll get right into it. Welcome everybody to the Trial and Aaron podcast. I'm your host, Aaron, but we call this whole thing The Tap. And with me today is Jenni Callison. Welcome, Jenni. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Thank you. I'm happy to be here.
You reached out many weeks ago, and to be honest with you, I'm like, did somebody hack on to her email and sent me this just very long and articulate email of what you want to talk about, how you're excited to be on the podcast or an opportunity to. And I was like, is this really, like, somebody really reached out, like email, like professional? And my God, here we are. And I'm so appreciative of you reaching out and wanting to be on this fun little passion project. And I'm going to put this kitten away. As cute as she is, everybody here's Sunny. And she needs to go away real quick.
Real bad man.
So she came from the landfill, and honestly, I started off feeding her like milk from the bottle, and now she's moved on to soft food, and I kind of miss feeding her from the bottle. I don't know why. It's just...
that's something us moms actually feel quite intimately.
It's just like, oh no, it's like, I don't know, it's like a cute little connection, but she would freak out trying to scratch, and then once she gets a hold of it, just, I'm like, oh, precious.
It's really bad to say, but I treasure those times when my kids are sick.
Mm-hmm.
I wish they were healthy, but they cuddle me more.
It
reminds me of the bottle feeding time.
I would say it's something sick. You're able to provide, like, just fulfill that mom role to the max, mm-hmm. and provide that TLC that they need if they're sick and icky, mm-hmm. and you're able to do that for them.
Yeah, it's lovely.
Sick days with mom. I'd pretend to be sick from time to time growing up. Just I feel like going to school, get to hang out with Debbie all day, and go to Vacaville, do some shopping, and then usually there's Taco Bell afterwards. Yeah. And that was always a nice little trade off for the lady.
Worth being sick.
Absolutely. Yeah, or pretending to be. Absolutely. So in that email, we definitely had some more serious points to talk about, specifically cloud seeding and the use of silver iodide. And I would definitely want to tease that for like the main, like, just guts of the episode. But before we get into that, could you give a little background of who you are, your position as a committee consultant for the California legislation? Just give people a little breakdown of who you are and how you've gotten to that position.
Yeah, so I'm very impressed that you got my job title right, because people I know and am sisters with don't know what I do for work. My sister used to drop me off at work sometimes and still doesn't know. So I am currently the chief consultant for the Senate Military and Veterans Affairs Committee. I am blessed enough to work over at the state capitol for the state Senate. I've worked for the legislature since 2011. Mm-hmm. So how I know you is that I grew up here in Winters.
Indeed.
And I graduated in 2002. So we didn't go to school together. Mm-hmm. We're about 7 years apart.
I graduated in 2009.
2009. So yeah, Kayleen, 7 years apart. Yeah. So my sister Kayleen and Aaron, good friends. My brother Kelly and your brother, good friends. Keith, I'm not sure if anyone's really. No, I'm just kidding.
There was love for Kea, like they're on the same Pop Warner football team.
Oh, man.
I remember Kea, just total non sequitur. He got in trouble because he's lineman and he had a "What Would Jesus Do" wristband on his face mask, and then the coach came and just ripped it off. Like, what do you do? Oh man! And he's a police officer. Kelly's a police officer. And what branch of the military were you in?
I joined the Army.
The Army? Yeah. What inspired you to join the Army, and then from there transition to getting into the veteran affairs and whatnot?
Good question. I think I was inspired to join the Army by living in Winters and thinking, what am I going to do now? And
mm-hmm.
I want to get out of here. It's very small. What am I supposed to do? My older brother had gone to community college, started working, and then ended up
Old Dave,
yeah. And I saw myself kind of going the same path and thought, I don't want to drop out because I'm working this job that I feel committed to. Mm-hmm. So yeah, I joined the Army. I went to Fort Jackson, South Carolina for basic training, El Paso, Texas for advanced individual training, where I learned how to be a Patriot missile launching station operator maintainer.
That the Patriot is like a missile system. Mm-hmm. And from there, did you decide, you went through boot camp? Was that fun, boot camp?
It was interesting.
Interesting.
It was not fun. I would not call it fun for the There's just different punishments they do. We have to wake up at all hours of the morning, night. The funniest thing was in the dining facility for the first 3 weeks, we could only use a spoon. Then for the next 3 weeks, we could use a knife.
They didn't even dignify you with a spork? Spoon only.
Week 7, we got to start using a fork finally.
And what is the lesson to be learned, or you get only spoon? Is it just learning to use with make do with what you got kind of deal?
I was very, very grateful for a fork, more grateful than I had ever been before in my life. So I think it really teaches you to be grateful for what you have. Like, I'm grateful for plumbing.
Mm-hmm.
I'm grateful for warm showers. I'm
Yes.
grateful for nights when I have a pillow and I don't have to sleep on my gas mask because that's the most pillow-like object that we had to carry around with us.
A gas mask.
Yeah, the gas mask.
It's intense. Would you say that the fork is now your favorite utensil of all of them?
Yes. I'm very blessed whenever I have a fork. And I did get to learn to use chopsticks when I was in Korea.
There you go.
So we started having rice with every meal for breakfast because that was just in their diet. So that was very interesting.
You've been around the world though. So, El Paso, South Carolina, El Paso. You said, how long were you in Korea for?
I was in Korea for 1.5 years. I extended. I was there for a year, and my roommate and I both put in extensions to stay an extra 6 months, and mine got approved and hers got denied.
Oh, what? They're just Sophie's choice. We want Jenny, or what?
She didn't pass her last PT test, and if you don't pass your PT test, you get like a flag. So because she had a flag,
What part did she fail on?
I think
Pull-ups, the
run,
mile.
But if you have a profile, so say you hurt your ankle, they give you a medical profile, then you still get dinged.
Mhm.
So she might have even had, if I remember correctly, we're still friends. She lives in Philadelphia.
Mhm.
She's come to visit me. I've come to visit her. So she'll probably listen to this, and she can.
Oh
correct
yeah, give her a shout out.
What up, Tara? Love
Tara.
you. Yeah, she actually married a guy, Plum, who we were in the military with too.
His
So
name's
they have-
Plum.
Last name.
Last name Plum.
Last name
Tara Plum.
She's now Tara Plum. Yeah. Yeah, they have 2 little boys who are now huge boys.
They met in the military.
Mm-hmm.
They're these kids born with crew cuts and just been able to do like 20 push-ups out the gate.
Yeah, they probably can. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, there's something to be said about the military structure and how it gives people, say, discipline.
Mm-hmm.
And gratitude is something that I think people wildly take for granted, myself included. Being able to turn on the air conditioning, being able to have both legs and arms if having a bad day.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I was just listening. I love history, hardcore history with Dan Carlin. And he was just talking about, it's called The Blueprint for Armageddon, World War I. Like, man, I am not a 16-year-old stuck in a trench with my feet rotting off beneath me, getting shelled every single day. Life is good. I was born in the right era, healthy, able to do a podcast, to be able to afford to not work 5 jobs or something like that to support myself. So
Yeah, trench warfare sounds like it was terrible. The rats.
not the right time to join the army.
No.
So what was some like in your military career, Korea, what stood out to you about your experience there?
My experience
I've
in
never
Korea
been.
was really interesting. It's a lot like being in the United States, but everything's in Korean writing. So I was-
Seoul, were you in?
Seoul is
Seoul.
the capital of South Korea,
Mhm.
Incheon, Seoul, and I was about an hour and a half south of Seoul.
Okay.
I was in a Korean Air Force base. So we do have American Air Force and Army bases in Korea, but I was in a Korean Air Force base. So there were only about 400 Americans on that base. We had 2 companies. So every 2 weeks we would switch over who's hot, whose equipment is running, facing North Korea, ready to go. And the other company would be not hot for 2 weeks, and they'd get to like do maintenance, practice drills. So it would be like, technically we're standing there, and if North Korea attacked, we'd have to go flip switches and get ready to shoot any incoming missiles or planes.
Was that nerve-wracking, just over the border is a potential enemy and the initiation of World War III, or just a cataclysmic event? Was that something that you tried to keep out of the forefront of your mind, or like, this is the reason that's the reason you're there, essentially, right?
Yes.
Would that get to you at all? Would that cause you to lose sleep, of just the kind of stakes that could immediately at the drop of a hat just raise?
It's interesting how quickly that just becomes part of life.
Just being used to it.
Yeah, so the freeways are made with also runway lines painted on them.
Mm-hmm.
So if war ever happened, they could clear out the roads. Those would become runways. So it was a reminder every time we're on the freeway that this is what the country's built for.
That's the same for ours, right? Like say I-80 or every stretch of freeway in the United States does that also serve the same purpose?
That's interesting. I don't know that.
I thought there was, but
I believe it.
But I believe, hey, just being ready, and it's just,
Mm-hmm.
it sucks, and it's just wild. I'm not sure, but the history of how North Korea was created, but just the vast difference of just abject poverty and subjugation of people where they're not even human beings,
Mm-hmm.
and then say a democracy or just a place that's relatively normal. Did you enjoy South Korea, like the culture and just the people there?
I did.
The
I
good,
did
the good
very
side, yeah,
much.
the silver lining
Mhm.
of being over there.
Yes, they had good movies, good subway system, great people. We went to the water park. We went to an amusement park, the shopping. Everyone's always nice. They say,
Really?
"안녕하세요." It means hello, how are you?
Oh,
Yeah,
did
and
you speak
then
some Korean? Did you pick some up on your time over there?
just a few phrases I know. 감사합니다 means thank you.
Mhm.
And 맥주 is beer.
Mekju.
맥주.
I love Korean barbecue, some bibimbap,
Wow.
the chopstick. It's so good.
Yes.
Noodles and such.
Yeah.
Did you go anywhere else beyond Korea?
That was it. I went back to El Paso, and that's where I spent the rest of my 4-year tour. So I did think about re-enlisting, but
Mhm.
I was ready to get back home and be with family. So I went home, used the GI Bill, and that's how
Yeah.
I started going to Solano Community College and then Sac State. It was almost entirely paid for with the GI Bill, which is a benefit that came around because World War I veterans really did not get paid.
Mhm.
Afterwards. They didn't get benefits. They didn't get like, oh, hey, you served the country for a few years. You took yourself out of the job market. Here's compensation for that. Oh, you hurt yourself. Here's your medical benefits.
Coughing your lungs out from getting gassed, or it seems like World War I was utterly, if anything, like nothing was really accomplished, and millions of people died. If anything, it showed us how we can industrialize killing each other. Just like, oh, machine, because people were showing up to, like, there was still cavalry, horse-drawn cavalries, and then it became what it was, like tanks, planes, just figuring out, oh wow, we were really good at killing each other, and then
Yes.
afterwards, oh yeah, thanks for your effort. Go back. We got the Roaring '20s to get to.
Yes, it makes me very sad to see the push towards the Ukraine war, the push towards whatever's going on in Israel, because, like you said, it's like an industry.
Yeah.
The military
Yeah.
industrial complex is real, and it does not seem like 13% of our federal budget goes towards the military industrial complex, goes just towards defense spending, and that doesn't even account for the part that goes to the VA to help the veterans. That's a different whole allotment. So 13% of our federal budget.
Which is how many billions?
I think 840 billion.
I could use that in my bank account. I feel like I could do some good with that. I would love that.
You'd have to wrestle a lot of Congress members out of their
I would
money
wrestle
to
them.
get that.
All those 90-year-olds, I'd take them.
You
I'd take on all of
probably
Congress.
could.
Was there any, because you joined the military and that, because I have a buddy who is in the Marines, and when it comes to, oh, there's racism, this and that, every culture's there's everybody, there's a great quote from Full Metal Jacket. Here you are all equally worthless.
Yes.
But there's
Yeah.
no, it's like everybody gets along. There, it's the structure, that's the camaraderie. Was there any like,
I'm not gay no more.
if I was a veteran and seeing what he went through just to get his disabilities from the VA, some resentment at how veterans are treated after pledging your life to give your life for the country, and then just to see it seems so difficult for veterans to get reacquainted with the real world, with society as a civilian. What was kind of going through your mind towards the end of your military tenure, what you wanted to do? Like, was there any hard feelings towards the military? Was there, what was going through your mind as that part of your life was coming to an end?
Yeah, there were some hard feelings towards the military because they, promise big, and the culture is very different than what you expect. So I assume that's what your friend also went through, is the expectation going in, and then you see very high-ranking people who are in charge of you and get to know them and realize that they're creating busy work for you to do, and they don't really know what they're doing, and they're enforcing rules that they don't want to follow themselves. So it's like, do I want to be here where they say, like, hurry up and wait is a common phrase in the military. So when I was getting out, I was just happy to be going home. But it does seem, especially because now I work with military and veterans, and with the county veteran service officers are one of the groups that my committee that I work for has oversight of. And they get paid a very small amount by the state to help file veterans claims, which are very extensive. So for a veteran like me or like your friend to file their own claim, it's crazy. It's like trying to file the FAFSA plus your taxes at one time. It's a lot of paperwork. So they have people who know how to do this, which is crazy in itself. Like, really, I need a second middleman to do all this stuff for me.
It seems like they're working against you.
Yes.
In a way. And I'm sure there's people that are part of that bureaucracy, that process, that want to get it expedited. But has there been so much fraud that it's worth all this extra, like, legwork to just get the paperwork done?
Yeah, that's a good question, because veterans very well can say that they have an injury that they are exaggerating or that was caused before the military or after. So there is an amount of fraud, but I think that this system that they have doesn't really detect fraud. It just makes sure that you say the right things and that you get the right boxes checked. So it's still very easy. There's actually, we just had in the California State Legislature this year, legislation by the Attorney General's office to try to outlaw these, they call them claim sharks. So they're people who charge veterans to file their claims. So they'll say, we'll make sure you get a disability rating that's going to give you money every month, but then you have to pay us 5% of your monthly payment for the next 2 years. So it ends up being sometimes an exorbitant amount of money.
Right.
Some of them charge back pay. And really, they're saying you're giving us money that you're getting from the federal government for your service and for your disability, just for us to be the middle. And they won't even say that they're lawyers, that they're agents. They ask the veteran for their login information to get into their account. So it seems like the system's not there to catch fraud. And the other thing they do is they actually have doctors who they'll have conversations with. So they'll, and maybe even pay off the doctor. So if the doctor gives this person a claim saying, yes, their knee injury is likely, just as likely to be due to their military service as not, then that veteran will get an extra amount of money every month. They'll pay the company, that company will pay the doctor.
And it just seems like there's deep-seated scandals going on right now, and that just seems horrifying that this would be done at the expense of veterans. And it's not beyond my, I can't believe that. Of course I can't. Like, it's about making money, I guess.
Yes.
Not camouflage green, but
yeah, making money. And it's often veterans making money off of other veterans. So that's where it's even crazier.
It's like, where's the damn loyalty? Like, what? It seems like there's people that got into power. My buddy said that there were people, I've always had respect for military members to have gone through boot camp and to give a portion of your life dedicated to the military. He was saying there's plenty of people that just, they're tough enough to get through boot camp and all the hard parts, and then just to usurp the power of that position. Did you see some of that in your tenure?
Yes, definitely. Yeah.
Were you one of those people that did, like, I'm in power, and now I'm gonna just, how much money are you skimping off the top?
Well, now that I have the mic, wait till you see what I do.
Yeah, that's very good. A more powerful platform than the tap, I don't know if there is one, but so as you transitioned out of the military, and still you're out of the military, but I'd say, in my opinion, you're still serving. What is it that you do specifically? What has your committee done? Like, what are some things we can? So I like to balance the negative that we hear about with some positivity. What are some pearls we can take home with us about what you're doing and what the committee's doing for veterans?
Thank you. Great question. I hope I do have some positivity for you, because it is so much easier to focus on the negative. So we do provide a lot of service to our aging veterans throughout the state. We have oversight of the 8 veterans homes that we have here in California. One of them's in Yountville.
Love that baseball field. Oh my.
Yeah, so that is the oldest veterans home in the country. It was created for Civil War veterans. And it's beautiful. They're building a huge building there, where right now in the building that they're using, it takes I don't know why, but for some reason, like 6 months to a year to order new parts for things. For a while, like 4 out of the 5 elevators weren't working. So the good news is that they're building a whole new building, and that should be done within the next year.
If I get a breakdown of where my tax dollars are going, helping veteran buildings or just for these old heads, let's go. That'd make me feel a lot better knowing exactly where it's going. It's going to support veterans. And when I had a baseball game there, total non sequitur, a baseball game there years ago when I was on the Gamblers Summer League baseball team here in Winters, 4th of July tournament out there, and all the veterans, they're in the backstop in their wheelchairs and just sitting down, and a brawl broke out. It was a big brouhaha, and I was on the side. I remember running up and no way. And then I hear after the fact it got cleared up, but some people are saying, yeah, these veterans got out of their wheelchairs for the first time in years, and
That's
just
amazing.
Enjoying the brawl. But anyways, Yountville, beautiful place, beautiful baseball field. Back to what your committee's doing.
Yeah, so we're just working with the administrators to make sure that everything there is meant to service the veterans, because there have been people who worked there previously that tried to use it for ulterior motives, ulterior purposes. They somehow talked their way into trying to create a zip line adventure park for the veterans.
I mean, not every veteran is in their 80s and 90s. A zip line, is that some kind of tax write-off or something?
I think it was I think it was literally the administrator's cousin had that company. So they ended up putting the kibosh on it before any moving or building got done. But so we try to make sure that just everything there is being done for the good of the veterans and that they have working equipment. There was a problem with the West LA Veterans Home where they didn't have a working kitchen. So because everything else was ready, but they didn't have the kitchen, then we had to go down there and work with people to work with CalVet, which is California Department of Veterans Affairs, and the LA Home Administrators.
So you span your efforts, your work spans throughout all of California.
My committee has jurisdiction of the California Department of Veterans Affairs and the California Military Department. And so the California Military Department, like Gavin Newsom was recently talking about sending National Guard members to the border to combat the fentanyl crisis. That's something they've been doing for a few years. So he supposedly doubled the amount, which is from 80 something to 160 something.
Seems like it's still sneaking in, this fentanyl thing. There is a time where I've only ever done weed and alcohol, no other drug vices. But if there was maybe shrooms I contemplated, but any Molly or extra, any sort of pill form, anything that I'm not getting from a dispensary, gone are the days where I'm going to trust that there's not fentanyl laced in this little bit, where it just seems like 0.01 grams of it can kill you 10 times over.
Yeah.
It's wild. And hopefully people, you just hear horror stories of some girl wants to take Adderall to help study in college, and she doesn't wake up because it was just laced. It's what the hell? This just kind of, this horrible circumstances came out of nowhere. I
follow an Instagram page called Every 11 Minutes, and they talk about how there's a fentanyl death in the country every 11 minutes. And some of the profiles they have of people who have died of fentanyl is it's sad. They're young. They are very young.
Unintentional. It's live your life. If you got to experiment a little bit, drug wise, heroin, coke. I don't know. I have my limits. People want to push them, whatever. Just don't get hurt, and certainly don't hurt others. But it just seems like, for me, it's not worth the risk.
This is where my criticalness of the government comes in, because fentanyl is a Schedule 2 narcotic, and cannabis is a Schedule 1 narcotic.
That makes no sense whatsoever.
No sense at all.
So, in my opinion, I'm a big advocate for cannabis. Veterans, active military members should be able to smoke weed. What's the alternative? It's to be a raging alcoholic is that stigma that is put on military
and there is a huge binge drinking culture in the military
for sure.
too. Huge binge drinking culture.
It's yes, you don't want someone being high on the job. I mean, why not have an eye test? If someone wants to smoke, maybe before they clock in, just checking with your supervisor. I am sober. You can't be high on the job, right?
Yeah.
So it's have you check in, have this supervisor. All right, you sign of approval, and then you're good to go. Could it be that easy if military members wanted to indulge in some funny lettuce instead of
wacky
drinking
tobacco.
yourself, just that
Funny
wacky
lettuce.
tobacco? It just seems like the lesser of two evils, rather than I'm just gonna drink this entire bottle of whiskey, like, or you have a joint, maybe it loosens you up a little bit.
I totally agree with where you're coming from. And actually here in California, they did just make it so that police officers, law enforcement, people who are employed in California can use, yes, because it's legal in California. So I'm hoping that one day they legalize cannabis federally, because I believe a majority of states by now have legalized recreational cannabis.
Why not tax this? This capitalist country, the ultimate moneymaker, has this cash cow they are not milking. I mean, I don't want to keep paying more taxes than need be, but why don't they stand to make more money off the tax revenue? Kind of like Prohibition. They took it away. They made like a huge loss to the overall grossing money in the country. Would federally legalizing weed increase tax revenue, I guess, or would it not benefit the government?
I believe it would, although here in California they kind of botched legalization, so they made it so expensive where they were charging cultivators $100 per pound, which is crazy. So then the black market is still very lucrative because of the overregulation. So California is recognizing that and trying to pass laws to change it. So federally, can they do it? I think federally there is a huge bias in our policymakers, because previously, in order to be in those higher up positions, to go to those Ivy League schools, to be in, you don't smoke weed.
There's like that kind of pretentious privilege. It seems like it's an older generation that still looks down their nose. It's taboo to
Well, they have an
weed.
information gap. Like, they really don't know. All they know about weed is what they hear in the news, which is that some girl went on a murderous rampage and stabbed her boyfriend because she smoked weed. Like, that's a false story.
We all have our freak out moments. You have a little too much edibles, but it's like if they just sat and like smoked it, indulged in it, and maybe they don't. I'm not saying it's not for everybody. If someone doesn't want to smoke, live your life sober. Worst problems to have. But just, it seems like they're coming from a place of just extreme ignorance when it comes. It's not that big of a deal.
Especially when they're promoting alcohol. Like, the dangers of alcohol are so much worse than the side effects of cannabis.
I'd say you get the munchies, something fierce.
You don't feel like abusing anyone. You don't feel like driving fast. You don't.
I don't drive. Some people say, "Oh, I can drive stoned." I'm like, good for you. I'm still not. That's a no for me, dog. If I feel different, or I'm just like, no, I don't want to get distracted by a butterfly or bug hits the windshield. Like, no, I'm so sorry. And then fly off the side of the road. But I will, as much as I enjoy weed, it can be a very devastating and harmful drug in terms of like who you are. Gateway aside, if it makes you so lethargic and apathetic to just having zero ambition to get up off the couch or do anything, it can ruin your life just in a different way. It's
too much of anything. Yes, happy medium.
Moderation, I'd say. There you go. Mental health is such I had a great therapist for many months, and she made a big impact on my life. Mental health, when it comes to veterans, the PTSD, adjusting to civilian life. Does your committee tackle those issues as well? Because how many homeless veterans are out there?
11,000 in California.
11,000
is the stat right now.
Is it mental illness that is the root cause, or I mean, what?
Yeah, that's a good question. And I don't know the numbers of the mental health stats in California, but I personally have lost 2 people I served with to suicide. I know many people who have adverse mental health from traumas they went through during the military, traumas they went through because of things that happened to them, and they never addressed it. And so they just had, I don't want to be around these people. And then it's like, well, you're in more trouble.
It's to see advocate groups for veterans, and just my buddy as well has lost a handful of friends to suicide after the fact. Is it drugs? Is it just trying to find a purpose? What can we do to help reverse this goddamn trend? We can curse on the tap, by the way. I bleep it out in post-production. So if you have some potty language, go for it.
So with the mental health, Sebastian Younger is a journalist, author. He wrote a book called Tribe, and he went with an army unit to the Kandahar Valley in Afghanistan. And at the time that they went there, the Kandahar Valley was the deadliest valley in Afghanistan. Sorry, Kandahar is the country, and the Korangal Valley is where they were. And this unit was supposed to put up an outpost, basically just like sticking out over where all the enemy are. So that meant they were under fire like daily. They lost somebody very early on. His last name was it Restrepo? So then they called it OP Restrepo was their outpost. And then they lost a few more people as they went on. So Sebastian Younger and his friend Tim Hetherington, they stayed there with them for the whole year that they were there.
These are reporters, journalists, and they're just gathering information, but their lives are
Also
in as much danger as these soldiers.
Yeah, so Tim Hetherington ended up passing away. He went to Libya, and he was reporting in Libya, and he died in a mortar strike. So he actually died doing what he loved, which was tragic. But so Sebastian Younger wrote a book, Tribe, and in Tribe he talks about these transition periods and how Native American tribes would handle war versus peacetime. And they actually had a different leader in wartime than they had in peacetime, which makes sense. But also the soldiers who would go to war, the community would not just like embrace them when they get back, but actually like take them on a healing journey when they get back and be like, here's ways to like sit in the steam tent, talk about your problems, talk about what you went through, discuss it. I think that's why World War II veterans had a slightly easier time, because they came home and everybody had gone through it.
You saved the world.
Yes, and not just, but then people here in the United States suffered while they suffered. We cut back on flour use, we cut back on chocolate, we cut back on rubber, we cut back on using different metals. Like, people worked, so people supported the war effort. So it was like everyone went through it together. But now we don't even know. We didn't know. Did you know, like a few weeks ago, that there were 1,000 service members stuck in Niger, and we couldn't actually get supplies to them in Niger because Niger's government had gone through a change. They ended up bringing in Russian troops and like cutting off where we could land our planes and how we could get to them. So then we had to negotiate with Niger for
it was like a military coup that took over the government, or what?
It was.
I've heard nothing about this.
Yeah, and also, why are there 1,000 service members in Niger?
Of ours.
1,000 U.S. service members who were cut off from supplies, cut off from mail, cut off from the United States. Could have been, who knows?
Were they like in our embassy over there that they're stuck at?
No, it was a base that we created. So we're basically, we built through federal tax dollars, through 13% of our federal budget going to the military industrial complex. I mean, defense spending. We built a base in Niger that we're now because of negotiations to get our U.S. troops back, we're turning that over to the Niger government, and we're leaving.
We're going to leave all the weapons, secrets, documents, it just...
Yes.
So I have not heard a word about this.
So how sad is that? So say you're one of those people and you come back home, nobody knows what you went through. Nobody knows anything. You go to the grocery store, you don't know anybody.
There's no compassion for your trauma.
Yeah.
And I feel like Native Americans just really... What you described there, I didn't know they kind of had like that PTSD type, like they were tackling it. They knew something was up with these people. Like warfare back then, you're killing with your bare hands, which I feel like would carry so much, not to say that shooting is any less traumatic, but that intimacy of the killing, to see Native Americans kind of go above and beyond like that at the time, where it's just, you're just being a coward. We're like patting, you're just a coward.
Yeah.
Shell shock, that's nothing. You're just being lazy. Where there's true compassion for the horrors, the nightmares that these soldiers have gone through.
Yeah. And
like Vietnam comes to mind. Rambo, the very first one, like the whole thing went way off the rails. It was all the killing guns, whatever. But just the dejected veterans coming back from Vietnam, like their baby killer that's getting spat on. There was zero compassion. There was no like feel for. I'm sure some people were given hugs and kisses, but by and large, it felt as if the Vietnam vets were just when they came back to the United States.
Yes. And I've talked to some people who were, and it's tragic because now we actually do know that it seems like we shouldn't have been in Vietnam, and it seems like the push towards Vietnam was wrong. So but to vilify the people who were drafted. Like, a lot of people didn't want to go. Their number came up on the TV.
That'd be so. Our buddy, we had a family friend who joined the the Air Force before he even got a chance to be drafted. Mm-hmm. He was on like an airline carrier. He's a chef, and so I guess looking back at it, nothing sounds scarier to me than the draft. And my 8th grade teacher said he was one date away. It was the birthday, and then his birthday was the next day. He missed it by one day.
Wow.
He did not get drafted. And
Wow.
I can only imagine how horrifying that'd be to be like, do you go to jail?
Mm-hmm.
Do you go to Canada, Mexico? I mean, what? I don't know what I would do. It just sounds like you're damned if you do, damned if you don't.
Yes, especially if you don't agree with the purpose behind it, then do you go, or do you? I don't know. I would try to get out.
World War II, it seemed like there were 17-year-olds, younger people, like signing up. We need to save the world. It's kind of objective evil out there. And Vietnam was, we're stopping the spread of communism. It seemed the marketing of it was so. So here's the narrative. American people are just, the hell is this? We're sitting over there. It was all for heroin, for drugs. It just seemed like such a wild waste of life while the CIA, whoever's perpetuating, is just sitting there just cha-ching, cha-ching. The military machine's running smoothly. We're making money. I guess we can end it eventually and we'll pull out.
Yeah, they totally transform communities too. The military does. The military, so they would, back then, if you were a homosexual, they would discharge you. And they would send you to San Francisco. Because that's just where the ships
go to
you off.
Ashbury, you little bastard.
So a lot of people were there, weren't from there, but had just been discharged from the Navy and ended up just staying. They have, the federal government does base realignment and closure. They call it BRAC. And because of that, they ended up deciding, like, Mare Island didn't need the Navy facilities anymore. Mm-hmm. So within a year, I think this was 2003 or 2005, they moved all of the military, all of their families out of Vallejo to other parts of the nation. So Vallejo didn't know what to do. They just lost a huge source of their economy. Mm-hmm. And then the recession happened. Mm-hmm. So Vallejo was one of the first cities in California to declare bankruptcy.
Yeah.
And I think that because of the federal government doing these things, that really they don't look at the full focus of what they're doing or the full lens. They're just like, this is my purpose, this is my mission. We don't care about you, Vallejo. And
is there no foresight into the repercussions? Like, it just seems like, okay, here's the epicenter. We're going to cause this earthquake. They don't see the fallout of their decision making.
That's what it seems like. And unfortunately, I think that happens when decisions are made in D.C. that affect places that aren't D.C. So when I started in the legislature in 2011, that was one of our focuses, was like, we want to prepare for the next rounds of base realignment and closure, make sure that we have good relationships with our military bases. And over the years, that's kind of dwindled down. So if there is another round, then we probably are going to lose some bases depending on what happens. Mm-hmm. I've actually also heard from members of the Navy from SoCal, and actually because of my job, I got to sit with the base commanders of the Navy and with my senator. And they are all experiencing hospital shortages, both on-base hospitals and the civilian hospitals that surround the base that cater to the families and the civilian contractors. I actually don't know, but there's a hospital in Ridgecrest, which services the China Lake Naval Weapons Station, that is in danger of closing down. They've already closed down their oncology department. They closed down their labor and delivery department, and they are on their way to closing totally. So now women who are in the Ridgecrest area have to go to Bakersfield to go do their labor and delivery.
How far away is that?
2 hours.
Staffing? I mean, it seems like everybody just stopped working. The pandemic hits, and then everybody's, we don't need to work anymore.
Yeah.
Are people still getting government like checks, or just why is there still staffing shortages if we're able to go back out to work? I don't know if that's more of like a general question or more military question.
Yeah, for those, I think they're civilian nursing jobs. A lot of them are the lower level CNA jobs that they have trouble filling. So the certified nursing assistants are the ones who like change the bedding, change the bedpans, do the grunt work, almost janitorial of the hospital.
A lot of poop involved from the nurses I've talked to.
And they get paid less than people who work at Starbucks. So why would you want to go do that job that requires some training and requires a lot of labor and doesn't give you the college stipend that Starbucks does? They do some kind of college benefit. So we have issues like that. I think that a lot of people retired or quit because of the COVID, because of the stress and the excessive hours. So if they could get out, they did get out. And what I was surprised to see a lack of during COVID was opening up the admission process to nursing degrees and licenses and medical school. Like there really has been no change of the flow of incoming or outcoming students. And you would think that like the entire country mobilizing behind this one effort, this one healthcare crisis, would then create this pipeline of let's get as many people certified to work in these hospitals. I didn't even see people getting raises. So you know, there was a huge influx of money going to the hospitals, but then I would talk to people because I had my kids in 2021 and 2022. So I had a lot of interactions at the time, and nobody was getting raises. They were just working more hours.
They just get a thumbs up, pat on the back. Like working these extra hours is its own reward. You're doing your part. Like you think there'd be hazard pay, there'd be more incentive, or just gratitude towards what that would just make me feel so much more valued, rather than we got 20 more hour shift, or just the whip cracking down to get, because the job had to get done, and these people were just getting burnt out, the candle burning on both ends. Just that must have been very difficult, having the kids, especially in just the whirlwind of the collapse of the world, it seemed. Oh yeah, no, I had a two crazy births, but with my daughter in 2021, I decided to have a home birth because the hospital restrictions at the time were that I could only have one person come in with me. It seemed inhuman, the restrictions that were put in place, but the at-home birth was. So what was, if you don't mind me asking, what was that like? Again, interesting. It was, my doula had 2 at-home births, so she recommended her midwife to me. Your doula? Doula is like a birth coach, so they don't have a medical certification, but they help you with your breathing, with your movements, which is like your body's doing all this crazy stuff. It's very helpful just to have someone push on the center of your lower back. Like for some reason that was very relaxing, and just tell you to like, wow. Just breathe. Just hold your note and just push as hard as you can. Yeah, so some hospitals provide them. My sister gave birth at Sutter, and they have doula volunteers. Kaiser didn't at the time. So I did the home birth. I did it in a tub. So I had a tub in the living room with water. It all went very fast. I had like a less than 6-hour labor. Really? Right. Yeah, right when it was. You're down to business. Yes. No messing around. No messing around. Right when it was like, I can't do this anymore, that's when she came out. So it was like, perfect. You hit a breaking point. Almost. It's like, just cut her out of me at this point. I was like, I don't know why I said no drugs. And then it was like, well, she's here. So I don't need natty. Yeah, all natural. Yep. Just the way the women of old, medieval times, just... Had you experienced pain on that level at any other point in your life? It was a lot like having a really bad period cramp. So yes, many times over my life, unfortunately. Sorry, I know you don't have sisters. You're good. It's all good. It's all good. I respect what that part, like what women go through in that regard, of just, that's something I'll never be able to empathize with. So I don't know if we have time for this on the podcast, but we got my midwife ended up being a criminal. So she has this whole booklet. Her house is all set up for it. I thought she was legit. She came in the day before, signed all this paperwork, put someone else's name on part of it. And I said, who is that? And she said, that's my assistant. And so I like, it pinged in my brain. Didn't really think much of it. Suspect. So the next day, her and her assistant show up. My baby comes out very fast. Like within the hour of them showing up to my house, she was there. And then they like worked on me afterwards to like, make sure I don't die afterwards. And that's pretty important, yeah. But they didn't. So this is where it gets a little graphic. I tore like this much, and they sewed me up like half of it. And so I was still like actively bleeding out of this tear that had happened. And then also when the placenta detached, I was still hemorrhaging. So like if they were competent and had actually monitored me, they would have seen that. So I started feeling weak. I
call her and she tells me, well, I've been doing this for 35 years. And I had heard her say that to my sisters twice during the whole process. And so I was like, that's her ego. Thankfully, like my brain was still kind of cognizant at the time. But I still was like, should I listen to her? Should I ignore her? I call my dad. He's like, call 911. So my sister, Jenni was halfway to Sacramento to go home and actually turned around and came back. And she was like, this is not okay. She called 911.
You're still in there bleeding.
So I get to the hospital and I had lost a lot of blood and my kidneys had started shutting down. And this fake midwife had told me to take an ibuprofen and go to sleep. So I would have died.
You'd be dead.
I'd be dead. Yeah.
So can we name drop this person so people, or is she in jail yet?
Actually, so her name's Claudette Coffenauer. She's since moved to Idaho. She got a license in Idaho.
How'd she get a license after this?
Because she's a criminal. So I did follow up with the Idaho board. I did sue her and her assistant in small claims court. I got $10,000 from them. Thank you. Thank you.
Let's go.
And her assistant is a licensed midwife in California. So the Department of Justice, through me and my family, because my family also helped me to like file complaints. This is very hard. I could see why mothers who had unpleasant experiences with her would just kind of brush it under the rug, because you have a new baby. You don't want to like look back on your birth and think about all the traumatic stuff that happened that was like not what you planned and not what you want your magical birth experience to be like, But because I almost died, it's like, well, I can't ignore that.
Yeah, she's feigning to speak with such authority and kind of gaslighting you. Like, I've been doing this for 35 years. The ibuprofen will be fine. Here, have some wine too while you're at it.
Dude.
What the? So that must have been a mind F.
So in 2019, they did the same racket. And they actually, because the fake midwife provided such negligent prenatal care and then postpartum care, the baby died. So because of us following up, the Department of Justice found these other, I think it was the investigator with California Medical Board, found this other birth. So now we have a court date in September for Lael, because they're trying to take her, Lael Stimming, they're trying to take her license. So you can actually look on the California Medical Board website and see under her license number the 8 accusations that they have against her.
Should she be charged for murder? Or
I think so.
Like, she's the sole reason that baby died, which and she's just scamming money, it seemed, and like she came as a recommendation to you. The fake midwife Claudette was recommended to me. Her license status was never disclosed, that she had surrendered her license in 2005 because it seems like she might have let another baby die in 2005, but instead of going through the process. So this is something that it's a monster.
And because of the COVID regulations at the hospitals, a lot of people went to the home birth side. So hopefully, this stopped her from hurting anybody else. But I talked to a few other moms that had very unpleasant experiences with her, and some that had like possibly criminal, where there's a home birth to hospital form that you're supposed to sign as a midwife to transfer somebody to hospital, and she just doesn't sign it. So that way they don't have a record of it.
And she got paid beforehand?
I paid her $1,200 beforehand, and I never paid her the rest.
I'd say keep your receipt, get that refund. I'm sure she'll be I'm so sorry that happened.
I'm grateful because I had really bad anxiety. I had really bad depression, but I could have had just like a little bit and let it go. But because it was so, like, I almost died, I did reach out to seek mental health help. And I found therapy, and I found mom therapy, and I still do therapy once a week on Zoom. So like, I love it. Right? Yes, it does help. I love it so much. I've learned so much, and like, I'm able to just enjoy the moment.
To be present.
I
guess so. The first go around, a little tough. The second birth, child number 2?
Yeah, so with Max,
how'd that go?
I planned to have him in the hospital right away. I was like, I'm going to the hospital. So I woke up at 4:30 in the morning with like my water had broke and no contractions or anything. So I think like I got some time. I went and took a shower and shaved my legs because that was important to me.
Absolutely.
And then I go to the bathroom and I wipe, and there's like something hanging out of where the baby comes from. And I'm like, what the fudge? Is that his foot?
No.
It wasn't his foot.
Oh, thank God.
But it was part of the umbilical cord, which is, I think because the water had broken and then I'd been moving around.
Yeah.
So
But there's no pain. You weren't like
no
in
pain
or anything like that.
But I'm like,
baby's falling out.
Am I gonna like, or is the cord gonna get clamped and then he's gonna lose oxygen? Is what. So I call Kaiser. They're like, call 911. Call 911. They're like, just lay there, wait for the paramedics to come. And of course, it's like 8 men all show up, and I'm laying there like, well, the umbilical cord's kind of hanging out, and thankfully they check it, and so they're like, it's pulsing, it's fine.
Okay.
So then I go by ambulance and I go get an emergency C-section. They put me out. So that was how I had my son.
So a complete opposite experience of all natural,
Yeah.
no drugs. It was the drug. So they rendered you unconscious to do the C-section. So that was what was necessary. That was like, this needs to happen, not to compromise your son's life.
Yes. Yeah.
So both sound traumatic in their own way, but I guess, would you prefer the second way, a trifle less painful?
The recovery from the C-section was like night and day better.
Really?
And I think probably the excessive blood loss hurt me for the natural one and the tearing. But I like the C-section, and I've talked to other C-section moms, like the recovery is so much better.
That's nice.
I do think that if you're able to have it naturally and like really listen to your body and just do what your body tells you, you shouldn't have a huge tear, and then you should be able to like recover easier from natural. But like
doing Lamaze and like just putting yourself in a zen-like state. I mean, I don't know if I'd be able to be in a zen-like state with an alien coming out of me.
No, it is weird. So it's not zen-like, but it is like your body really physically tenses up so you can know when to push, and then it stops tensing when you're not supposed to push. And the only advice those stupid criminals gave me was to push when my body wasn't telling me to push. So I think that's what led to me tearing. And there's no way, and this is really what I've learned, is that there's like no way to prepare. No way.
Just got to do it.
Yeah. Whatever you think is going to happen, it's not going to happen. And whatever you plan for, you're still not going to plan enough. So it's like, really just be open to what happens. And I would say try to just like not get induced if you don't have to, because the induction is where these women will spend 30 hours in labor and still not progress, because it's like very unnatural chemicals flowing through your body to try to get your body to. That goes into the child too. Yeah.
Yeah. Was there kind of, I'll try to phrase this question, like a primal sense or connection with when you went all natural, feeling that pain and going through that? Did that affect you psychologically afterwards, during? Was there like a connection with every woman that had to do it all natural throughout all of history? Can you imagine that some women had, you're in a tribe and you have 20 kids and you're just, hey, bite the stick, push it out. It just, I don't know. Was that more satisfying in a way to do it naturally?
I don't know, because then motherhood's so crazy. Like, yes. I'm glad I did it just to do it. I don't know if it's like a competitive thing, bragging rights, but
hell yeah, you got bragging rights.
I'm more just happy I have healthy kids. And so have you ever read Pearl S. Buck? It's I'm blanking on the name right now, but she's a Chinese author, and she writes about the land. And it goes through this Chinese man, but then his wife, who's like devoted to him and has his 3 sons, she goes and gives birth and goes back out to working on the rice fields the same day. Same day.
Of course. Why not?
And then he ends up like getting a younger, attractive wife and ignoring her for a long time. Yeah, that's how that book goes.
A real light read. Just from a biological standpoint, men have it so much easier. My God, what women have to go through every month, just the hormones, the expectancy to got to take birth control, guys. Just we pee standing up. Sometimes it's just wildly inconvenient. I am so jealous of men getting to pee standing up, because I can't. Hey, look, an anecdote. I got my ex. We dated way back when. And I told her, I got you this birthday gift that is going to be a game changer. It's going to change your life. I got her a Shiwi. It's like the little funnel you can stand up, but it's just, I don't think she ever used it. But I looked at it, I'm like, this is really small, and it looks like it'd be kind of messy.
Yeah. I've never tried it, but I have heard of the Shiwi.
Shiwi. Maybe one day when I get sponsors, the Shiwi would be a sponsor of the tap. That'd be nice.
It's a great idea. Shiwi. It's for everyone.
Please, yeah. Even as a guy, I'd be like, let's see if this works. But I know that's just in the world today. It was difficult covering I used to write for the Davis Enterprise as well for the school district, because there's the whole, I want people to live their life, be who you are. It seems like there's the quote unquote woke kind of culture that goes into Davis, and I've talked to the board members. They're all human beings. They shake hands, they have smiles, they're good people. From what I could tell, good people. And when it comes to like what women go through, and there's a huge trans sense of urgency there in Davis. And for me, it's like, be who you are. I don't know. Is it difficult as a mother to see the world that we're in right now when there's so much change going on? I'm not trying to push any sort of agenda here on the tap or anything. I want people to be who they are. But is it difficult as a parent seeing what the world is and just trying to help your kids navigate right from wrong and boys, girls, what have you? Just what is it from your standpoint trying to navigate these very murky waters?
Yeah, so that's a good question.
I try. I don't try to get political much. It's just, I don't know, a different point of view from someone. I have no children. I have cats. It just seems like a very daunting task to try to help your kids get through the world as crazy as it is.
It's daunting to figure out how to make choices as a parent right now, because there's so much information and so much wrong information or old information that it's like, what do I do? And I think I know what you're asking about, and I was
trying to phrase it in a very politically friendly way, I guess.
So as a mom, and I'm gonna probably not be super politically friendly. Hey. As not a mom, so I used to play roller derby, and I loved it. I loved roller
bashing
derby.
brains in
it's
left
so
and right.
Fun.
Yeah,
so fun. I was coaching director for 3 years. So we were Sacred City Derby girls. And then we ended up merging with Sac City Rollers to become Sacramento Roller Derby. I was coaching director of Sacred City for 1 year, Sacramento Roller Derby for 2. So, roller derby is known for being an inclusive sport. So when I joined the league, there was somebody who I thought was just like a manly woman. It turns out she is a man who is now a woman.
A biological male
Biological male. Yeah. So whatever. I'm going to treat an adult like an adult. I met a lot of people in that culture, like a lot of the spectrum of the LGBTQIA spectrum. I am good friends with some of those people. I love some of those people, whatever. As a mom, I will never tell my child to change their reality for an adult. And that's where I am on that now. And I don't want my kids to go to public school, because public school, they are telling children that they can change their reality, and that reality is different than what reality actually is. And I know, like you say, these are good people. These are they're nice, that you can talk to them. But I have also spent some time in Davis. I know a mom in Davis whose daughter decided that she wants to identify as a boy, and that she wants to be called a boy name. And it's not because she was isolated and on her own and just was like, being a woman's not me. It's because she had friends and she had colleagues and she had peers and teachers and counselors who said, if you have this, and this problem, maybe this is the solution. And to say that to somebody who's going through puberty, whose body is changing, whose emotions and hormones and physical body is changing, and then to say the answer is to change your body is insane. So there's a Navy SEAL who got out of the military, and he went to a counselor and he said, you know what, sometimes I like to dress up in women's clothes. And it's very common. You go through this really traumatic thing to want to feel soft and nice. So that was his way of doing it. They said, you're transgender, here's some hormones. first appointment. So he lived his life as
One appointment.
One appointment. He lived his life as a transgender woman for almost 10 years. Still miserable. Still suffering with all of the same traumas that he went through. And on top of all the new traumas that he's going through from trying to present as a woman.
Mm-hmm.
So now he has detransitioned. And that's something that is becoming more common.
Mm-hmm.
At the state capitol last year and this year, they had a Detransitioners Awareness Day. Last year, Antifa came out and counter-protested at the Detransitioner Awareness Day. And my coworker was on a walk with her my coworker has an emotional support dog, Winston, who's so cute. But she's like, Winston has PTSD.
It seems like the Antifa, they're the most fascist organization one can think of. It's like, you're not allowed to think this way. They're the thought police.
Yes.
Or they try to be.
Just
watching the school board meetings, like, yes, the people seem nice, what have you, but it could be performative. It was just when I'm able to talk to them on a personal level, all right, that seems okay, but ideologically, the way the school board is run, like, there's a lot that goes on in those behind closed doors that we don't know about. Mm-hmm. And there's this lady, Beth Bourne, who is like, hey, this graphically pornographic book is available to any 6-year-old, 5-year-old in the library without their parents' consent. And what got to me, someone who's not a parent, just trying to think objectively what right and wrong, I see this 6-year-old with a mask on, with a pride flag draped around her shoulders. I'm a trans kid. I deserve to be respected, this and that. And I'm sitting there like, good God. When I was 6, I identified as a Power Ranger. I was a Super Saiyan. And this child, in my opinion, is regurgitating the political or the narrative that their parents are just shoving down their throat. Mm-hmm. This kid doesn't know what they're talking about. Mm-hmm. And to ask a 6-year-old, 7-year-old to know full on what their sexual identity is before they even hit puberty, before they even go out and let the world teach them a little bit. Maybe they're gay. Maybe let them kiss. Maybe let them get their heart broken and have some life experience before either hormones are given or a irreversible surgery is taken. It just sucks that parents, if they don't agree with the kids, whatever's going on in their head, then CPA comes and takes the kids away from the parents who are just trying to do their best. I think it's taken say that a kid is gay and they want to come out to their parents, and the parents just, no, you're not my son, you're not my daughter. That maybe they're trying to avoid that, but this is what's going on, and this is not that. This is not parents not accepting their child. This is maybe a kid is just going through a phase. Maybe let them hit puberty first before we have these discussions or these ideologies. Have you ever read 1984?
Yes, I have.
It seems as if we're living in a world where every day we're trying to be convinced that 2 + 2 = 5. Mm-hmm. It's not. And I bet that there's trans people out there, they're just trying to live their lives. Hey, this is a weird thing I'm going through. So I love Dave Chappelle. He's able to joke about it. And his story about the trans woman that he knew that killed herself. It was that the woman, the guy who transitioned to be a woman said, I'm having a human experience. And it's like, all right, let's just try to accept what's going on here and like move forward without, like, we need to have kids involved at this point in time. It just, like, why are they cannon fodder for what seems to be this political rhetoric?
Yep.
Or just very, very scary. I would say either homeschool, private school, sports. I want my kids to play sports when I have kids, but I just don't know how far this is going to go. And it seems very like they're hot spots. Is Davis, California going to be the same as, say, Davis, North Dakota? Would all these transgender issues be happening in spots that are not as liberal, would you say?
Well, that's a good question about the hot spots, because it is a fad. And it is that there are more kids who identify as certain things in clusters. Mm-hmm. So I actually have a friend who sent his daughter off to go live with his sister because like 5 of the 6 girls in her friends group all started wearing chest binders. Chest binders to like hold down their chest to like appear as a male. So in school. And so he's like, instead of trying to talk to you about this, I'm just going to remove you from that peer group. And that's what's crazy about school, is that we send our kids there for 5 days of the week. Their peers and their teachers are such a huge influence on their lives. So it is important to be very selective where we send them to. And one thing that could cause hope is that there's a program called the Student Voucher Program, which is not widespread in California right now, but through legislation it could be. And that would provide funding per student. So instead of all the funding going to public schools, I could say I want my kid to go to this private school, and then $14,000 would go with my kid. So it sort of evens the playing field in a way. And that's something that Californians, Democrat and Republicans, say they care about the children.
Yes.
So if they do care about the children, we should support them by providing them the best opportunity. And that means not dumping as much funding into public schools, because we're 47th out of 50 in literacy and education rates.
Sad.
California is a dumpster fire.
It really is. Teachers aren't like paid enough. They can hardly afford to live. Say Davis, because I was governing the school district. The teachers were up in arms trying to get paid. They're trying to afford where they teach. I think where their mindset is like the equality, equity, and conclusion. I understand that we want, say, someone of a different race to see a reflection of themselves in the history, in the school books, and everything going on, and try to have it be a safe place for kids, whoever they may be. Maybe they know that deep down in their heart by the age of 10, maybe I'd like boys or what have you. It's just it seems like there's convincing almost. There's the twisting of the arm to conform. There's the kids around your kid, because my friends had influence on me for sure. I didn't want to be the odd man out. And it's just, hopefully we can reach some middle ground. And I do believe that the folks, say the school board of Davis, and those perpetuating this kind of ideology, in their heart of hearts, in their mind, feel like they care about kids as well, and they're trying to do what's best. They're trying to take the best step forward. It just seems like this is your heart's in the right place, but everything else is rather over the top.
And I think we need to start calling them out on that, because it almost seems like hate speech to try to say the truth, to try to say that you should not talk to children about your sexual lifestyle or their sexual lifestyle. But they give out surveys to 3rd graders through 12th graders, and they have on the surveys, do you identify as, straight, gay, transgender, blah, 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 to 3rd graders.
It's too much.
It's too much.
3rd grade, is that anything that should be on their radar?
No.
It should be like...
And that all comes with funding. So the school boards are incentivized to accept those surveys because they come with funding. And that survey, the specific one I'm talking about, was partially funded by the Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation. So take that for what you will.
Is that planting a seed in their mind of the kid just starting to question, I wonder if I am part of this group? It just seems like there's so much, an opportunity to be a hero by being a victim is now to be a hero these days. It's the easy way out to make a difference, make change. And like, we're living in a world where, there's people in the 60s who were social justice warriors who advocated and put their lives on the line. And nowadays, kids, I posted a black square on Instagram. I did my part. It's like,
or the new thing is this whole go riot for Palestine or go protest for Palestine.
That's very difficult.
And what I don't understand is that 4 years ago, everybody was rioting for George Floyd. So George Floyd was a black man who was killed by a police officer, supposedly is the line. That's why everyone... Because the story is black people are disproportionately getting killed by police officers in this country, to the extent that we should all protest. So a few weeks ago, there was a black Air Force, active duty Air Force service member who was in his home. A police officer showed up, knocked on his door. He answered the door with his gun because he didn't know who was at the door, but his gun was down. He never once lifted it up. This police officer who showed up at the wrong house, wasn't even at the house he was supposed to be at, lifted his gun and shot the guy and killed him. Have you heard anything about this in the news?
Nothing.
In the nothing.
Where this happened?
This happened, I want to say it was either Florida or Georgia, and I don't know off the top of my head. But I would think I'm outraged. I feel like that's crazy. And that police officer, despite, I have family members who are police officers, a bad shot is a bad shot. That's murder.
Yeah.
Yeah. So why did we see George Floyd's video over and over and over and over again, but we haven't heard anything about this? It's like the people who
Because of his military service?
I don't even think it's that. I think that the people who advertised the George Floyd thing and made sure that it was in all the media and all the taglines now have their interest over in Palestine and Israel and
fat
getting
outrage.
all the kids
It's like wherever the next thing is, it's like, don't think for yourself. We'll do the thinking for you.
Yes.
Here's what you need to be outraged about. There's the whole from the river to the sea. I just feel like there's so much there's so much ignorance in the outrage. They understand there's wrong going on, but there's no research done beyond whatever TikTok video they see or Instagram. And I'm guilty of it as well. Throughout pandemic, I went through a lot of anger issues of just seeing snap headlines and just letting it influence me because I see so much discourse and hate, and even saying the things now of just my kind of wariness of this trans movement and kind of voicing how I really feel. Like there's part of me that's a little uneasy. Like, am I going to get hated on for saying how I feel? I'm not trying to offend anybody. I'm not trying to upset anybody. I'm trying to treat people equally, because at the end of the day, we all poop. We're all human beings. Yeah. And I just feel a little nervous speaking my truth, here on the chat. Thank God I feel comfortable enough around you to say this. And I guess where I was going, like when I first brought up this trans thing, I was like, oh, not exactly sure where you land on that. But when it comes to, say, someone is transitioning male to female, my idea. All right, you don't get all the laurels of being a woman without being a woman. I'd say put some like electromagnetic inserts. We have the technology, I'm sure. And then once a month you get blasted, like in your stomach just gets torn you just get the cramps. And then there's maybe some emotional injections like the hormones and whatnot. It's even if someone transitions, it's like to be a woman in like just the society of just, you need to be a Victoria's Secret model. Just all the expectations of women, the ideal body image. Do you think someone transitioning from male to female endures that? I have no idea what it's like to be a woman. Have
you ever heard of what the surgery is like to go from male to female?
A little fillet of the wiener and then gets turned inside out, and
so they tell these people that they'll successfully have a vagina cavity. It somehow gets sewn in with the colon usually. So I've often heard that it smells like poop. I've heard that it's painful. James O'Keefe recently had one of his undercover investigators interview somebody who worked for the DOD. He actually writes talking points for those fake idiots who are in charge of our Department of Defense. Talk about the military industrial complex. Lloyd Austin was a board member of Raytheon. He was not in the military at the time, and then they pulled him back to be the Secretary of Defense. Disgusting. Raytheon's one of the big military government contractors. So this guy who works for the Federal Defense actually talked about in his James O'Keefe found him on Grindr. So James O'Keefe is playing a homosexual male, and he tells James O'Keefe that he's very sore because he recently had bottom surgery. And so they don't know, but they're actually like getting, surgery is difficult. When you get surgery, there's often room for infection. But cosmetic surgery, like people get cosmetic surgery and then they keep getting cosmetic surgery because they aren't happy with it, because they're not happy with their chin. They're not happy with their nose. If they could just tweak it a little tiny bit, but then after they tweak it, it's like, well, I'm still not happy with it, so I'm going to get it tweaked a tiny little bit.
Look at Michael Jackson.
But for these people, Michael Jackson actually had like a skin eating disease. So yeah, but I've actually done some more research into Michael Jackson, who's got a very interesting story.
Indeed.
But the surgeries, they don't tell them that this is going to be infected for a long time. It's going to stink. It's going to be painful. And this is for like years after you get the surgery. So it's all like big pharma money grab to try to charge people for these hormone injections. Where here in California, if you're 12 or older, you can go in and get them without parental consent.
That scares me. I'm again all about people expressing, because I don't want to be judged based on who I am, trying to be this writer, podcast guy. Like, I don't want to be discriminated against. And it's so scary that a child without any parental consent can go and begin this process. It's life. This might be an extreme to compare it to, but to get that surgery is, I'd say, as important as contemplating suicide, because this is irreversible and your life is forever changed. Not ending, but there's no, you can de-transition, but your life is never going to be the same. And the fact that there are these de-transitioners, maybe we should adhere what they say after the fact. And if someone wants to truly, say by the age of 18, maybe 20, I'm not sure what age, if that's truly what they want to do, like have some life experience first and then make that call. I know that there's, like, listening to some of the teachers at the DJUSD talk about the science of it, or what's the difference between a male and female brain, the development of it, and just how gender lands on the spectrum and stuff. I don't know I don't know if I call it new science or all these facts that just transgender issues seem to have popped up after 2020, after the pandemic, George Floyd, and it just seemed like this was just another, and transgender. It just seemed to come out of nowhere. I mean,
it did not come out of nowhere. It actually came from President Obama. He sent a memorandum to every single school district and said, you have to let students use the bathroom that they identify with. So a lot of actually very divisive things came out of who I thought would be like a unifying president. You
spoke very well. I didn't feel nervous for the end of the world when Obama was in charge, but maybe that was.
But now his third term.
Part of his lure. Yeah.
Yeah. So Ephesians 6:12 from the Bible. It says,
you came prepared.
I like to be prepared.
I got you.
For we are not fighting against flesh and blood enemies, but against evil rulers and authorities of the unseen world, against mighty powers in this dark world, and against evil spirits in the heavenly places. And I think that's what this is. I think these people that you talk to, we're not fighting against the flesh and blood, but there is a spiritual force of destruction. And that is what the Bible says. Satan comes to steal, kill, and destroy. And if you look around, like, what has been built beautifully, they want to spend another few $1 billion on high-speed rail, when for the past 10 years they've built some railing from like Barstow to Merced or something like that. Like, what?
It's never-ending construction. It's it's all like making money. It's.
But then you look at the children. So the children. During COVID, public schools were closed down the longest. Teachers' unions kept public schools closed down longest. So private schools, people who had the economic means could still send their kids to school. So then you have the poorest of the poor. You have prisons. They sent prisoners home early. They are still closing down state prisons. So then you have people potentially going home, abusers going home to their victims. And there's nobody to report to because they're not going to school. They're not going to the same clubs and sports gatherings and social outings that they used to, where normally abuse victims would be able to say something or people would notice signs. So there were a lot of regulations that our California government and our U.S. government placed on the people that were like deliberate. It's almost like a deliberate attempt to hurt the morale of young children.
Why? It seems if everybody's so worked up, like criminals are out, you can get away with murder damn near. Anything under $500, now it's just freebies, right? Everything's a Costco sample. It's like the pot is stirred to get us all so on the surface level hating one another and discontent with the world as it is. And for me, I don't see Democrat, Republican Party. It's all higher ups that are just, this is all a performative just dance. It's something that we could see and digest, but they're all in charge.
Yes.
Like, it just seems like we have no say into how our lives are lived. It's like, here's discourse, here's this problem, and it's like, I wonder what's going to happen next. School shootings, and now we got to make regulations there. I try to have a happy medium of being aware of what's going on, but not delving so deep into going down Reddit rabbit holes or anything, because I just feel like I'm gonna lose my goddamn mind. I'd just rather like podcast about things, because I don't usually talk about these topics, and I go based more of how I'm feeling about a subject. When like the pandemic first came around, I'm like, something doesn't seem quite right here. And I was never telling people don't get vaccinated. I'm like, hey, if that's your choice, if that's how you feel about it, like, do what's right for you. It's just, I didn't want to get hated on for my opinions because I'm unvaccinated, and I don't want it to judge others for being vaccinated. And I don't want to get
also
judged.
Unvaccinated. I had to write a letter into my work to get a religious exemption.
So
it was just like 2 lines of, I'm a Christian.
Right here.
I don't want to do it. Yeah.
My buddy was formerly SFPD, got religious exemption, and then they said, you, no. And so he moved to Texas.
And now they're asking all the hospitals, all the agencies, they're asking people back. They're sending, there's
that
this
slap in the face.
There's this Kaiser nurse who videoed herself getting fired and walked out for not getting the COVID vaccine, and she just posted her letter that they sent her to say, wow, you're rehiring if you want your job.
It's so horrifying. I didn't want anybody, if I want to be respected for my health choice, I don't want the government having its greedy little hands in anybody's health choices, and that, like, I don't care where that is, whether it comes to abortions, vaccination status, what people want to do with their lives. Like, let that, in my opinion, that should be your choice.
Yep.
And this just, I didn't want anybody who got vaccinated to feel judged. If people want to be respected for not being vaccinated, it's got to go both ways. But I saw people on each other for being quadruple vaxxed. I mean, I've seen people in their car wearing masks. Like, it's very upsetting.
It's so funny when it's just one person too.
Like breathe some fresh air, see a smile. Yeah. There is so much of elements of humanity lost, not being able to see our face.
Do you remember the videos of them trying to put masks on young children? I hated those so much.
It was just...
There were vaccine cards to go to bars, to go to shows, I know somebody who got the vaccine just because he wanted to go to Primus. Mm-hmm. And then the security guard didn't care when he actually showed him the card.
You're good.
Yeah.
I
just got this vaccine for no reason.
If the vaccine made you feel at ease, if you felt like that was the best move for your family, I'm not here to judge you based on your vaccination status. And it sucks if someone wore a mask, or even if it was under your nose, they're like, well, you're a Trump loving, hoo-ha because your mask isn't on. Or I put on masks I'm not trying to cause a fuss. I didn't find it necessary that I'm going to die on this no mask hill. The most irritating it was trying to be in an airport and flying, and it was very difficult to breathe for however long I was on the plane. But I didn't want to put off that. I know I'd go on my rants in my car alone about how I really feel, but I'm like, okay, I just don't want people hating on each other based on their health choices.
Yeah. Yeah. And nor should you really know other people's health choices. That was the other weird thing is when did it become all of a sudden you have to tell your employer? And there's
wild.
Yeah, there are people who are suing their employers for disclosing their COVID vaccination status because, and then the courts are saying, well, no, that's not a HIPAA violation, but it's why not?
Well, one lady, I went to the Mondavi Center to get tested. That was my middle ground. If I'm not going to get vaccinated to help others feel at ease, it's a give and take both ways. I don't mind getting tested. And a lady was like, oh, you vaccinated yet? I'm like, no, not yet. She's like, hey, your body, your choice. I'm like, that's all I needed to hear. It's that easy. I didn't feel any animosity, any angst, any sort of judgment from her end. Your body, she just brushed it off.
Yeah.
Brushed it off. And, I've had some really tough discussions with people close to me who are very much on that vaccination hill in the moment. I even went to go see my grandpa who was in the hospital at the time. Doctor came in. I got tested. He came in. Are you vaccinated yet? I'm still doing the research. I just wanted to say something, but it caught me off guard. He's like, well, the research has been done, and you need to go get vaccinated immediately. I'm like, dude, where in the Hippocratic Oath did condemnation and ridicule become part of what you prescribe people?
Especially because the research at the time was vaccines don't spread it. So vaccines stop transmission. And then they changed the definition of vaccine because the mRNA vaccine for COVID does not stop transmission, nor does it stop you from catching it. So then it's what's the point? Oh, well, you won't get as sick from it. Well, that's not what you said.
No.
What you said, what Rachel Maddow said on MSNBC is if you get the vaccine, the COVID stops with you.
The COVID stuff. What a great marketing tool. And it's just, if that's how people wanted to live their lives, so be it. It was just so difficult to me because I don't trust the government as far as I could throw it. And I'm not trying to go Alex Jones land. But how quickly are we labeled conspiracy theorists if you're not about it? Like you're meant to be gaslit to the point, I'm crazy. Maybe I should just get vaccinated.
What's your favorite conspiracy theory?
Oh, man.
You motherfucker.
I'd have to think on that one because I don't go to flat Earth is that one. I'm not on board with flat earthers. It is hilarious though. I guess that because people genuinely believe that the Earth is flat, and like usually, what hurt the most in like the whole pandemic thing when it comes to doctors, trust your doctor. Astrophysicists, trust astrophysicists. Oh, the science dictates. Hey, the world is round. We can believe that. But this is the first time I'm like, holy shit, just because doctors you wear that white robe means you can still be easily as bought as any politician. And that I still don't want to dissuade people from trusting their doctor. That's a working relationship. But it just sucked to see, man, it seems like there's a narrative just being pushed everywhere you go, everywhere you turn.
Yeah, no, there is. And it is financial. And I think $370 million was the amount that the pharmaceutical companies donated or like gave to members of the National Institute of Health over the past 3 or 4 years.
Here's the script. Write it out. I don't want people getting hurt. You got the vaccine, you're going to get killed, you're going to get blood clots, this and that. I hope to God that's not true because a lot of people I know and love are going to get hurt. Yeah. I don't want my mom and dad. There's people that I know and love got vaccinated. I could care whatever your vaccination says. I don't care. Be healthy, do you? But I don't want there to be adverse side effects. That means a lot of people I know and love, like I said, they're going to get hurt. So
I agree. I hope not.
Hope it. Hopefully it does stop COVID in some regard. I had it before. Have you had it yet?
I had COVID in 2021. So my daughter was a few months old. And I had like a high fever and I didn't feel good.
I got tested and I got the positive test sheet I got back from Sutter Health. I have it up in the lunchbox. I have it pinned up there, the date and everything. And it took me out for like a week, just tired, lethargic. Still had my taste and stuff like that. I'm like, well, this is a bummer, but I know I'm going to get over it. And it just seemed like it was such an easy... The marketing of COVID, the church of COVID. It's like, well, you'll be fine if you're young, but what about grandma and grandpa? What about other people in your life who aren't of good health? You got to do it for them. Yeah. It's your patriotic way. And that's just like, oh, you clever f***ers with the wordplay and spinning the narrative around.
The guilt and the potential like death.
It was real enough. I mean, a friend of mine, his grandma died from it. It was real enough. People died. I will not deny that. And
people did die, but they're now saying a lot of people died from being given remdesivir, which I think actually like increased the severity of the COVID, and then put on the ventilators. So the ventilators, they basically made it so your body wasn't able to fight. And I noticed this actually when it was happening, like nobody gets off the ventilators once you get on a vent. And that medical treatment came from China and came from the WHO. So we were here listening to their advice and we were doing it. But actually hospitals were doing it for people who weren't that sick from COVID. But they said if they're on a ventilator, they won't spread COVID to other people. So they were actually killing people by treating them with the ventilator, but not even that they needed it. They just wanted to not spread transmission. So the rate of deaths from the treatment, the rate of deaths from like COVID, but not really COVID. If you look at the stats right now, supposedly the United States has twice the number of COVID deaths as the country of India. The country of India has 1.3 billion people, and we have 325 million.
Not as many.
But supposedly we have twice the COVID deaths, and we have our medical system, we have our hygiene, we have our, like there's no way.
How can we trust? It's usually trust the numbers, right? Statistics don't lie, but statistics, it seems.
Oh, statistics can be swayed.
They can be swayed. There's just there's so much, if I may use Joe Rogan's term, f***ery about it. Seemed it was just very. disheartening to see. And I wasn't trying to make people uncomfortable either during the whole thing. And I watched the South Park COVID specials. Just, hey, let's maybe lighten up on each other. We're all trying our best on a human level. Okay, we can lighten the up.
Yes. Yeah. And it is really, once you start talking to people, almost everyone's just like a normal person. Like, yeah, struggling. If we don't talk about the COVID or mask at all, then we're fine. So it is like, lighten up, love your neighbor. And that's something that the Bible also stresses. So I bring it up because I started last year. I realized I hadn't ever read the Bible all the way through. So I got through the Old Testament. I'm in the New Testament now. But yeah, it's like, love your neighbor, take care of your community. And all of the advice in there is just like good, solid advice.
Do you try to take, like, how influential is religion on your life and how you go about your day-to-day, your decision making? Or is it just like, okay, I can refer to this if I'm ever kind of in a moral dilemma? Because it is just good advice. Hey, be a good person, what have you. Would you say where's your religious meter when it comes to how you live your day to day?
That's a good question, because I feel like the word religion is very like, this is the strict standard of how you live your life. It gets taken out of context.
Bible thumping, the Lord will set you free.
Yes. So I would say on that, I'm not very high. I think.
Hello, my sliders. Alas, that is the end of part 1 of this 2-part epic podcast with Jenni Callison. Rest assured, part 2 is edited on the way. Just get ready for that release. I love y'all, and until next time.
You lose! Good day, sir!